Welcome to the VML, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and Good Luck I5. My name is Filipa and I'm joined here today with Sky, and it's already week 5. So this VML is been running through so fast. Don't forget, we have 7 weeks and then the top 32 that makes it into the playoffs. If you're interested in joining the next season, please don't forget to follow the VML on Twitter. So today we have a lot of interesting matches, and I'm excited to see what people decided to bring post bans. Sky, what did you think changed post bans here in the standard metagame?
Well, so far, I noticed a couple colors are missing on the color wheel, right? Like if we take a look across the deck list, which we will in a few seconds here, I don't want to spoil. There are a few colors that are very much missing right now, like green. Green's kind of absent a little bit. Red has made a comeback, and I don't mean Fable of the Mirror Breaker red. That was a very different essence of red. I mean, like Mono Red has made a comeback, but most of the wheel we've been seeing throughout the VML kind of lie in those Esper colors, right? They've lied in the black, white, and blue colors. So, what do you think overall, Felipe?
I'm very excited to see. I was playing Rakdos before. A lot of the cards got banned. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, of course. We have, I think, if we count the times that we read Fable of the Mirror Breaker here in the VML, the count is going to go so high that I'm excited to see what players decided to do now that that card is out of format, and what decks also start to play that were kind of not possible to see play because of this card. Also, Bank Buster. I was not expecting that one to be banned, but it was a card that played in almost every deck. So also very exciting to see what players decided to do here. Just a quick reminder, the stakes are high. Week 5, it's usually when the players start to making the math, because the top 2 of each division advances into the playoffs, and top 8 of the season is going to get not only an invite to their regional championship, but also to the VML finals, which is almost here. And it's the last chance that players have to qualify for this amazing tournament. And I've heard you're doing also pretty well, Sky.
Shh. I want to be a sleeper in this one. No, I have actually been doing quite well. This is the first time I've been doing VML for what, like 7 seasons. This is the first time I've started out 5-0. I don't know what it is. Maybe things have just been going my way, but I will tell you something. There are no freebies here in the VML. Every match has been well fought for here. And again, especially with the now 3-year standard cycle that we have ahead of us, that's going to make the fight just that much more difficult because we have to deal with additional strategies, cards being working together that we didn't think would have to work together at some point. And there's just so many cards within the format to pay attention to that we have to kind of think about, okay, Shieldred being one of them, Rafine being another one of them. And it's just one of those, how are we going to deal with this sort of thing? Well, speaking of Rafine and Shieldred, let's take a look over at the deck breakdown here. And as stated earlier, Esper Legends at 24, and just, oh my goodness gracious, I cannot believe this. I also want to take a look at the fringe decks as well. Felipa, what are you anticipating here? Do you think those fringe decks are going to break out at some point?
I think so. The mat is so open for, I think, all season, to be honest, 8, 9, and on 10 until up last week before the bans. We always see some form of Grixis or Rakdos on the top cards with Bankbuster, Shieldred, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That is no longer the case. The top 5 decks here are not Grixis or Rakdos. So I'm excited to see, and I'm also excited to see how players adapt and how the meta evolved. Anything here, Sky, that catches your attention from the top lists or even from one of our fringe decks here?
So I don't think this picture tells an entire story, right? Because when we take a look at the list, like Esper Legends, of course, always going to be on top right now. That's the way things were going to be post bans, as we were talking about. But then I see Mono Red Aggro, Celestia Enchants, and Azorius Soldiers. Those are all aggressive decks. But yet, I feel like the vast majority of what we see is still going to fall within that mid range to control. So while it looks like aggro is starting to creep back into the format, you can't help but wonder how much does control in mid range really have the format locked up. And again, as stated, we are not seeing much of green. Celestia Enchants, we see a little bit, tiny bit, but that's about it. So again, keep an eye out for those mid range and control decks. They might surface when you least expect them.
And can we take a look here at our first player profile? We are going to have a spicy first matchup. So first, we have here Azorius Soldiers. Robin decided to bring this deck. Currently, she is 2-2. So once again, we start to get into that decisive point because if Robin loses again, probably the chance for making it into the playoffs is not looking so bright. So here, Robin really needs to make lock that win. What do you think of this Azorius Soldier deck in this meta?
So there's one card that we hadn't talked about yet in the aggro matchup, and that is the Knight Errant of Eos. So again, you're going wide. This card will help you not draw nothing but lands. We've all seen it in an aggro build. It's all something we're very, very, very frustrated about. But we do see the Knight Errant. There's also Zephyr Sentinel. Did I see that right? Zephyr Sentinel, and it is a card to watch. That's right. So that is not something that we were also expecting either. I didn't even know this card was a soldier until I saw it was a card to watch, hence why those are there. But yeah, it goes wide quickly. Also makes use of those make disappears for the all important counter to the wipe spell. So again, there always seems to be a backup plan here. I also love the wedding announcement in the sideboard. Again, another card that didn't get hit by the bans. Card you always have to anticipate seeing.
And let's take a look here at what is Robin playing against. So it looks like Noor decided to bring more Boros mid-range. And once again, this list, I haven't seen quite a list like this. We see more Boros Reanimator kind of style. What do you think of this list with Etali and also Elesh Noor? So imagine if Elesh Noor is on the board and then you play Etali and you get 2 times the enter the battlefield trigger.
Well, that's terrifying, first of all, the picture you just painted. Something that you definitely don't want to see. But yeah, this is definitely a departure from the reanimator lists that we have seen. So, standard is mostly constructed right now of cards that you must have or you must get rid of. A tally is definitely on both sides of that spectrum, right? You must have it on the field, but if you're up against it, you must also get rid of it. Kind of a tough list to play in terms of what if that gets breached. Now, shouldn't be too much of an issue this week given the deck list, but just something to think about because again, your own creature could be turned against you here. I like the Elish Norn though, because should it turn against leaves you with some residue behind to finish off damage. And then also the wonderful Sarah Paragon. Again, another card that just cannot afford to be left on the board. Fantastic deck list.
And Faye is currently 4-0, so very good start here for Noor with Boros midrange. I'm excited to see how this deck performs, and let's take a look into the games as our players are already waiting to see if they keep or mule. We have a look in both players' hand, and what do you think of this hand here for the looks like mono white, but he's not.
I
Uh,
was going to say that was my initial thought too. That is that it looked like mono white. I mean, both decks could look like that, arguably, right? Like, I think these are both pretty acceptable hands here on the whole.
I
You
need to
have
jump
the
in really quick.
yeah.
Hi, this is Phoebe. Right now it looks like the names are reversed, and that's because they are. I made that mistake and just now noticed it. So my apologies, to both, Run the Duels Robin and Noor Singh. I hope that these wonderful people would kindly forgive me for that, minor error. I think I fixed it in the next, section, but, we'll see.
Absolutely here. So that spell piercer again, we were talking about the counter magic before, playing a little bit of a role here. And it looks like Noor's or sorry, Robin's side of the board, there is that missing land there. So again, we're going to see how that missing the land drop here plays a pretty major impact considering.
Yeah, for sure. And I already see here that on Nor's side, we have the Elish Norn, that it must be a very good card against the Azorius deck. And I don't think the Azorius player will have a lot of time to play that make disappear with the lack of lands. What do you think, Sky?
So right here, we were talking about lack of lands before, but now Convoke, yes, Convoke is back in standard here. Knight Errant going to get a card. The only catch is, again, that land drop is a lot to catch up on, and here comes the big booty. That is Elish Norn, Mother Machine. So again, very, very interesting scenario here, but Robin has seemed to find the third land here. So again, it's just going to depend on, can Robin overwhelm the board?
Yeah, and definitely, I think also one thing or one key card is Arbing, because the board is starting to develop, and Arbing can eventually let all the board fly. And Sky, is there any answer that the Boros player might have here, nor to deal with something like an Arbinger?
Well, this was a really great play here by Noor again. That is Lithomatic Barrage here. And again, just anticipating that make disappear. You know, if you see a blue mana open, you're always thinking counterspell, right? Sunfall would be probably okay here. There is also the Eternal Wanderer. So I do believe that Noor has both pieces of the puzzle. It's just going to depend on when Robin lets the guard down here.
Exactly, and this card usually is a sideboard card. Why do you think Faye decided to bring it main board?
Make disappear. Yeah, Faye made a really great decision here because sorry, I'm again, I have to remember that both sides of the board here are reversed. So Faye bringing in the barrage, excuse me, was awesome because Faye anticipated some kind of counter magic. Whether you're playing aggro, mid, or control here, you can expect that blue's going to be popular and that counter magic's going to play a very major role. So again, great constructed deck list by Faye, and Faye is very close to being able to cast. Look at all the power cards in Faye's hand right now.
So many power cards, as you say, and I see though that Robin always keeping those two lands open for that counter magic, but you can only counter one spell, and it might just be this Eternal Wonder. That this card is very scary.
All right, so we did see the make disappear. So again, so everything that Faye has been anticipating here has come to pass. That make disappear is there, but now with one land left, what kind of decision making will Faye do? And it looks like Faye is going for the sunfall. Yes, sunfall. Here it is. And again, while that does get rid of Elish Norn, look at that very beautiful 10/10 token out there.
Another card I'm seeing is an Itali, which another card I'm seeing on North side is Etali, which if that goes to the board, it's very scary. Ossification there. We do have a Sentinel in response.
Yeah, so again, just showing what Sentinel can do, right? Like, Sentinel is just kind of a catch-all. The only problem is it does bounce here. And there is the barrage that you were talking about there, Filipa. Just, again, just playing an oh-so-important role there. And then just recalling that Faye also has Archangel of Wrath, and there's only 4 life left, and not too many more answers left here for Robin.
Exactly, and Nor also with the 10/10, which definitely needs to be blocked. Things are not looking up for Robin here.
Yeah, and there's that Archangel of Wrath. Not so much for face as anticipated, but just to get in with that huge token there as game number 1 is here to an end. And oh my goodness, that Boros deck was so explosive here as we go into the sideboard.
I'm a fan of this Boros deck already, but let me know, Sky, what do you think we are going to see here in sideboard for our Azorius Soldiers player?
So for soldiers here, yes, definitely the Destroy Evil is a great one. Again, a little more counter magic here. So I'm thinking in this one for the Azorius deck, you're going to see just a little more aggressive than usual. And then if should game 3 happen, we're going to be seeing more counter magic. Meanwhile, here on the Boros side, again, just fine-tuned main and sideboard here, taking out the kind of higher up drops that aren't Oh yeah, right there. The Italis are coming out here. Wander is kind of a tough one just because you don't know if you're going to need to wipe the board or not. But yeah, just kind of lowering that curve here, especially going into game number 2. Pretty wise decision here by Boros. Like, my goodness, this is a fantastic deck list. I actually want to look into it a little bit more after this.
Yeah, and actually, Faye is for no. I don't know if she's always bringing this deck particularly, or if it's a new inclusion. But I'm excited to go back and see because this is such a spicy deck, and it looks like our player names are now fixed.
Yep.
Hey, first of all, thank you, Phoebe. We appreciate you, and thanks for letting us know in the last game. Just want to again shout out Phoebe. Phoebe is wonderful. So going
It's
in,
okay. I just want to mention one other thing that I wanted to mention actually during the first game. Um, I love the name Run the Duels. That's just absolutely amazing. A plus. That's a win in my book.
absolutely, thank you, Phoebe.
And Phoebe always coming to our rescue. Big shout out for all the technical support. We would not be doing this without you.
Absolutely. We're seeing Robin develop the board here a little bit now. And if there is a card that is scary on a developed board, it is Harbin. And there's 2 Harbins currently in Robin's hand. Now, one will most likely get picked off by this barrage, but without a second answer, this is looking pretty scary here if you are the Boros player that is Noor trying to set up.
And here, if you ask Robin what is the perfect opening end for Azorius soldiers, probably this is it.
Oh, yeah.
A beautiful curve, developing the board. Barrage is a great card, but here it seems like not enough. And now we can even play also a frontliner plus the Arbin, and we can just go for so much damage.
Wow, already down to 8 here by Robin. And again, Robin not playing the Harvin this time. Quite the move here. Doesn't want it to possibly get picked off. And it's going to pay off here as Loran is played. And with that only being a 1 planes to cast and possibly being able to swing for pretty close to lethal here. My goodness, this is a really great position here if you're Robin.
This is definitely a great position, and we see here how this Azorius soldier deck can be so explosive. And I really like the decision here by Robin to not play their Arbin, really reading on what the opponent might have. And this is also, we see how the games play out differently because it is an open deck list. Do you think that makes a difference in the games that we see and the way that the players play the game?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, you were talking about Robin's restraint here before, Filipa. Yeah, she has a lot of great restraint here, not just slamming down everything, kind of putting down everything with a purpose here. However, that Archangel of Wrath, a little scary right now, but Robin's pretty is going to be pretty wide here with the board state come next turn. The only thing, oh, and that is a Sunfall for Nord. This is getting pretty tangled, Filipa.
It is getting pretty tangled, and that life link is definitely going to help Noor. And if things were looking like it, if there was an advantage bar, it was so flipped towards Robin's side, but now I think it's kind of switching.
Indeed, it is here. So that is a second Archangel of Wrath again. And you may look at that and be like, wait, that's not legendary. No, it is indeed not legendary here. Robin opting to make the board even wider with the reinforcements can play what's left here with the frontliner. And I have a feeling we are about to go into game number 3 here.
And there it is, that restraint that we were talking about, that not playing the Arbin kind of paying off for Robin. And that patience. A lot of players would just slam everything on the board and hope for the best, but Robin really playing this game very calmly, really considering what Nor might have, and that paying off here, as you say.
Yeah, and again, this is a very hard decision. That's why it's good to count. And Robin was counting all of the damage here, and Harbin again is going to be adding 1/1 to everything as well. But again, keep in mind when that Archangel blocks, that will be +3 life here for North. So again, there is a lot of math being made here, and Robin here choosing to use Skrelv to make reinforcements essentially unblockable here.
And we are going for that attack. Now everything will get +1/+1 and flying, but Noor does have a way to block. And at 11 life, is this going to be enough?
Anybody got a calculator out in the crowd? That is essentially 14. No, yeah, 14 life here because I always add the 3 in right away. No, that's not enough. And will this be a land for lethal? This is going to be a land for a board state lethal here for Noor. Will Faye find it?
and
Yes, that is a
there it is.
battlefield forge off the top.
And you can gain 6 life before that if you attack with both of your flyers. Here, attacking with everything.
So yeah, I misspoke earlier. I forgot to calculate the 3 life, and you want to know what? If you're a player, you definitely want to calculate that 3 life, especially when you have a card like Sunfall that is going to be absolutely devastating here in the case of Robin, and just there's nothing left at this point.
And
GG's.
a concession for Robin here. Good games, and we really thought things were added up for the Azorius soldier deck, but here we saw Noor completely destroy everything with that Sunfall, which is a key card. Sky, what did you think of these games, and particularly of this Boros deck?
The Boros deck is just, again, explosive. It can handle with those wide board states. The Archangel of Wrath was the card, though, there that got the Boros player Noor over that threshold, right? Because again, those blocked, those gained life. And as you saw, every life point there was needed to withstand the enormous board that Azorius soldiers can produce. So again, great games to both players here. Just again, Sunfall being absolutely dominant, but let's give a honorable mention here to Archangel of Wrath.
Very true. That card went for the win, gaining so much life and be able to take that blocker, and attacking with a 10/10 for win is also some flavor points there for Noor. So let's take a look at our next match as we see our players profile. First, we have Danni here, and they are 4-0, which is pretty good score with mono red aggro. And mono red being one, as we saw on the meta breakdown, one of the favorite choices here for our VML players. Why do you think people decided to bring mono red, Sky?
So there's a couple different cards here that are going to influence this. So in the last couple sets, a lot of stuff happened here. We have the Rampaging Raptor, which again, you don't think of that in the current standard, right? Like, we're not going to see Ixalan for still a little while, right? I believe Q4 this year is when we're going to see Ixalan, but that makes me excited for dinosaurs, right? So Rampaging Raptor, pretty big factor here. We also have the Shivan Devastator, which seems to be a red mythic everyone has forgotten about because, again, it was kind of in that shadow, right? VML the Mirror Breaker only being a rare just overtook this absolutely enormous, X red spell, but it is there, it is present. A lot of haste here. Monastery, Swift Spear, can't go wrong with that. Bloodthirsty Adversary, and then, of course, Invasion of Tarkir. And, of course, to handle the infamous Shield Rid, there is some Nahiri's War crafting here as well. So, again, this deck does a lot more than it could do prior to March of the Machine.
And let's take a look what Danni is facing. And I think you're going to be surprised because it is mono red aggro. So we have the classic battle, and here Rosencrypt 3-1. So this is one of those matches. We are into week 5. One of the players is 4-0, and here Rosen 3-1. So this is definitely a decisive matchup for Division 3. And what do you think of this mono red version, and how do you think the mirror plays out?
So first of all, I just want to say, Mono Red, what year is it? Because I didn't know we were in 2023 right now. We have not seen Mono Red in quite a while. It makes sense. I mean, post ban list, that's kind of like a rotation in air quotes. But anyways, though, for what you were asking about this build specifically against the other one, a couple ones here. Feldon, first of all, a pretty big staple here, especially in that red on red matchup, as it can produce more like we'll call it quasi draw power, right? Like it's kind of draw power, but not really. So Feldon's a good one to have here. We do see a little more removal as well, too. So that might give this deck the edge. We see more lightning strikes, invasion, strangle, play with fire. In the red on red matchup, it seems to be who's ever left standing after all the ashes. I'm sorry, pardon the pun with the Phoenix chicks here. Who's ever left after the ashes, after every spell gets slung, typically the bigger creature or the person who has the more resources wins, which may seem obvious, but keep an eye out for Shivan Devastator from the last deck. Belden will probably play a pretty big role in this one, and we'll see who's still standing. Sort of wants some future in the sideboard, something also to think about here during this matchup.
And if you know me, you know I love a good magic pun, so I have to refer that Rosen here gave the name of the deck when in doubt, burn them out. So let's see who of these mono red player is able to burn the opponent. This is supposed to be a fast matchup, but it actually can be the opposite as well. This can tend to be quite grindy, and we see here Danny's end with Kumano, Monastery Sweeps here, Shivan, and two Bloodthirst Adversary. What do you think of this end?
Well, this is quite the hand here that Danny has. It's definitely going to be out racing here between the Swiss Sphere and the Kumano Faces Kakazan. Both very good one drops here. Danny opting to take. They take the Kumano Faces Kakazan. Both good moves, mind you. But yeah, Danny's hand is fantastic here. I'm interested to see how Rosencrypt responds, and apparently with a Fountain.
And there it is, 3 damage already. And being on the play also really helping in this matchup, would have thought. And we see there that now Danny needs to take a decision between maybe two monastery or a blood-tied adversary. Bloodthirsty. I always say this name wrong.
No, you are totally good. No worries. Both Swift Spears coming down again, kind of increasing that board presence here. But leaving the Swift Spear behind is interesting because, again, it does present that kind of threat for Felden because you don't want Felden to start running and running and running here, as Rosencrypt does opt to strangle that Swift Spear because, again, a 2/3 Swift Spear is pretty dangerous. If you think a 1/2 is dangerous, yeah, 2/3 very, very, very scary to navigate as Kavanavis's Kakazan becomes active. And now, again, this field's going to expand even more with what will likely be an adversary here.
Exactly. And here we see that Danny going for attacks. So, and just, okay, playing more on the defensive. So, Danny recognizing, I'm at 13 life. I'm not going to win this race. Let me just hold on a bit and start putting some creatures on the board. What do you think of this decision here by Danny to be more on the defensive?
I like what Danny's done here. I had assumed the adversary, but I get the appeal of holding back the adversaries because, again, Danny can draw instants and sorceries out of the yard. That could be, again, it's all about the resource management here, right? For mono red on mono red. So good thought process here by Danny saying, okay, maybe I can outlast, and the adversaries can take something out of the yard here. Really good play by Danny.
And here we see the Felden taking damage, which means that Rosen gets access to an extra card, which is a very nice way that Mono Red has to kind of draw cards. And it gets a lightning strike. And just Rosencrypt just passing the turn.
Yeah, we might see another pass here too. So again, adversary is probably going to do adversary things here. But this is like a good stat point here for mono red. It's really easy to get into the swing mindset. But again, Danny, they have so much restraint here. So, and again, that's kind of been the key word tonight here, restraint, right? Like knowing, anticipating your opponent's moves, kind of doing counter plays to what your opponent's doing here. So again, just great game so far tonight here. And that is another Felden here by Rosencrypt.
Another Felden, and that Phoenix Chick can start also dealing some damage. Ooh, but we see here we're going to transform that Mishra's Foundry, and now we are able to block that Felden if we want to, but it looks like Play with Fire taking care of that. And here, Danny just taking 3 damage, but Rosencrypt only has 1 Lightning Strike and it's used, so no cards left for Rosencrypt. And this is where this card here is going to start getting some value. And it looks like Danny decides not to attack, just playing more defensively. And a lot on top decks here now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's going on is Danny's trying to run Rosencrypt out of resources right now. That's why you're going to see the block here on the Foundry and not on the Felden here, because again, that increases the odds of something really frightening happening here. And now it's going to be interesting to see what Danny's exactly going to do with this adversary. Also, that is a Sokenzan in Danny's hand, so that is also another option for them.
And down to 6 life when Rosencrypt still at 17 doesn't feel good. So here we are going to have a double block, but once again, Felden is going to be able to get that card advantage.
So let's see what's off the top here with Felden. That is an
Ooh.
adversary on the end of Rosencrypt. This is going to definitely put a wrinkle in things here, as Danny now has to deal and think about the different things that adversary can do.
Yeah, in getting cards like Lightning Strike from the graveyard is scary when you are at 5 life.
Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty interesting decision here by both players between the play with fire and between the fact that Danny knows that Rosencrypt could now reoccur the lightning strike here. Danny opting to go for the adversary here. And that's it. No additional effects here. It's pretty tough play overall.
Yeah, but this might almost be enough because now that Phoenix Chick it has flying, so it cannot be blocked. We can get the lightning strike, or oh, here we go for strangle, and we are one off. One more damage is all that Rosen needs, and this is not enough.
Mm-mm.
Here we see a concession, and we are taking a look here at the sideboard. What do you think can enter here in the sideboard for this mirror match?
So this one's a little tricky because, again, that barrage, hang on, it's 1 damage, and then if the target's white or blue, so that's not going to play a role here. Warcrafting's definitely not a bad decision because, again, that's going to create a lot of card advantage. Same with Sword of Once in Future. The only problem with Sword of Once in Future is that it can either be stolen or it can also kind of be slow in this matchup, right? Like the only time Sword of Once in Future is going to be like really good here to draw is towards the end of the game to just kind of be that finishing move, right? But again, it's a very interesting play pattern here. So again, I think the Warcrafting is definitely the right card to be focusing on right now. But again, Warcrafting, Sword of Once in Future, both look pretty good here.
For sure, and let's take a look here what our players decide. Uh, I really like Rampaging Raptor, by the way. It's a card that it's kind of recent and I haven't seen play that much, but it
Mm.
can be so strong.
Oh yeah. So one thing that I've noticed that's been going on with Magic, and it's not always the case, but I've been noticing it, is typically if I see a card release that looks kind of out of place, I'm like, okay, there is a plan for this card for in the future. I don't know how much more we're going to see Rampaging Raptor between now and we'll call it Ixalan. But when Ixalan comes out, I believe Raptor is going to be all over the place. Once it gets that Dino support, just like how Galta Primal Hunter back in the day got that support, there was once a pretty mighty dinosaur deck out there. I do believe that there is a plan coming up for Raptor. I'm excited to see what that plan might be.
That is so interesting. I haven't thought about it, but you are absolutely right. And I remember last time that we went to Ixalan, dinosaurs were definitely a thing. And if we go back to standard 2019, we had vampires versus a dinosaur. So those were the big tribal decks. I'm excited to see once the new set comes out and the Ixalan, which is only next year, I think. I'm excited to see this card play more.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rotting Register, too. Another card I'm wondering if they're going to reprint here. Another great first turn one here. Kumana faces Kakazan. Can't go wrong with that as a turn one.
Exactly. And here it looks like, oh, Swift Spear is going to start dealing some damage. Unfortunately, that move for Danny was not ideal, but we can already start with this creature, already a 3-3 on the board, and we eventually, if we don't have anything else to do, we can pay the cost to transform it. Finished Chick can start attacking there. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, that cost is definitely going to be worth it here, Filipa, as that Swift Spear cannot be, or Spell Spear, sorry, see, Swift Spear, Spell Spear, they all look the same after all. The Spell Spear can transform here, and that is exactly what Danni is going to do here. Again, you don't think it would transform because of the way Mono Red and Mono Red works, but that now is a 4 prowess creature, and that's going to be very difficult for Rosencrypt to deal with here. What an explosive start for Danni.
Exactly, and that ward cost is also going to keep it from being touched, or at least giving some additional cost to it. We see do here though, Felden play with fire, getting rid of that 2/2, and now Rosencrypt can go for that more aggressive, leaving Danni at 10 life. So this is going to be quite a race here for both players.
I think that raise, hang on, I wish we could kind of mouse over. That is one of the newer cards there. That is a Valderan. Hang on. Where's my magnifying glass there? A
It's
thrill?
a Thrill Seeker.
Thrill
It
Seeker.
as
Okay.
backup two, and then you can pay 1 mana to sacrifice the creature and deal
Yeah.
damage anywhere equal to this power. I actually play this with Yargle. It
Yeah.
transforms Yargle into a 20 power, and then I deal 20 damage to opponent's face. That's a fun standard deck.
Absolutely here. So Thrill Seeker could do a thing here with the spell. So I'm thinking here, and I'm glad Danni here is in the tank, as we are all right now thinking about there are a variety, a multitude of good moves that can be done here. If Danni can survive one more turn, they have this. But again, this is one of those anybody got a calculator type moves.
And here we are making this dragon a 2/2, and we are playing the 1/2, and just are we attacking with everything?
Maybe not quite.
Okay, attacking for 5,
Hmm.
leaving Rosencrypt at 8 life. That Phoenix Chick now cannot attack because there's that 2/2 to block, unless, of course, Rosencrypt can find an answer for it. And it looks like we might actually see that Lightning Strike taking
Mm-hmm.
care. But now that Thrill Seeker on the other side is really scary, we might actually see game here if Rosencrypt doesn't have anything.
Yeah, 2 mana up here, and that Thrill Seeker is looking pretty tempting here. And again, that backup 2 is going to put the 2 on the Spell Stalker here. And again, that Spell Stalker can essentially fling. Yes, that I know is an antiquated term, but yes, fling and or thud, depending on what you like, right into the opponent's face. And it looks like here this is going to, for reals this time, be game number 2 here. Or sorry, game number 3. Holy, no, that is 3. Okay. I was looking at the things that I'm sorry, like the dots indicating this. Yes, we are going into game number 3 here. And again, these are so quick, right? Mono red and mono red, pretty quick matches here.
Yeah, and here every game number 3 is always nice. We see no changes in the sideboard and a start for Danni with 2 Kumanos, one adversary, and once again, ooh, and we got the invasion. What do you think of this new invasion?
I think it's one of the strongest invasions out there. It's not quite the strongest, but it is one of the strongest. And again, it's a shot combined with a future threat. I mean, what more could you want if you're trying to do something with mono red?
Exactly, and here Danni has so many options. We are going again to create this 3/3 that it's going to grow as we saw last time, and also it's a great blocker. So I think Rosencrypt needs to prioritize this, and there it is, removing it with Lightning Strike, being able to deal also 3 damage here, and Danni flipping the Kumano, and with a lot of options in end.
Yeah, we'll definitely see Soken Zen here played as a land, and that's okay. That's what it's for, right? It can be a spell or it could be a land here. Danni has a lot of decisions to be made here. We might just see Invasion of Tarkir play a role, but again, that 1 mana up. We're talking about decision making here, right? I cannot believe, and again, a lot of people also cannot believe how much decision making there is involved with mono red, because again, just so many different layers here. Invasion?
And
Oh, going
taking
for that.
care.
Yeah, good.
That's actually crazy, and I really like this invasion, and I really like to see it play. Do you think Danny is going to try to finish this battle, or just going to keep going face?
Well, that's the question, right? And I know battle doesn't seem like a new mechanic, but you have to remember it wasn't that many sets ago. But yeah, battle being the new mechanic, which forces the opponent, especially mono red, this is hard, right? We've always heard the term faces the place. That's a little more complicated here, as now you have this battle, right? A little different from a planeswalker because you gain something instead of just destroying something. I think Danny is eyeing up the invasion right now, considering Rosencrypt is still at 16 life. That's a lot in the match of mono red.
Yeah, and here we saw these games can get quite grindy for mono red, and we see Dina here is taking care, getting a land, and this could go either way. That's what I'm thinking. Both players have options. Both players still at LT life totals, and here we might see the Devastator, Shivan Devastator, as a 3/3 flyer and going for that battle. So it looks like Danny here considering prioritizing the battle.
Yeah, Danny prioritizing the battle again. They want to add, oh, there's the sort of once in feature. Now, see, like I said, that was going to be better late game. So, what I was going to say is Danny wants to add to the board state by destroying that invasion. But that sort of once in feature now added a little bit of a complication to this plan.
Exactly, and we see their sword making so much work. And honestly, uh, when sideboarding, I wouldn't see this card entering, but you made a very good point that this card can be very grinding for the later game, and we see it here. Rosencrypt deciding to bring it on, and so far doing a lot of work.
Yeah, she made a great decision here by adding sort of once in future here, but that is an obliterating bolt for the dragon. And again, she added that because again, destruction is really good in that red on red matchup.
But look at this now, that lightning strike taking care of the last creature that Rosencrypt has, and now with only one card in hand, and Danny has a lot of answers to play with fires. We have the adversary that can start also being a big threat, and here just passing.
Yeah, again, we were talking about restraint. That's been one of our themes for the evening. And again, Chad, I'm so sorry if you're tired of hearing me say this. That took great restraint to, not slam down the adversary and just go for more damage because that's what Mono Red wants to do. Kind of hanging on to that adversary here. And Danny here looks like that they're going to wait. And right there goes the play with fire onto the adversary here. So again, Danny just making sure they are executing everything very carefully here.
And I really am thinking that this word, the restraint that you're talking about, I wouldn't really consider it when talking about a mono red mirror, but there it is and being so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, speaking of that card advantage, here is Warcrafting again. So again, not quite card draw, but again, let's say that there were a ton of lands on top. That kind of gets through that still. And again, lands aren't such a bad thing with the Sword of Once in Future. All it takes is one creature, Rosencrypt, to get back in this game here. But speaking of just one creature, here comes 3 damage here.
And for those people that make fun of mono red, that it saying that it doesn't really make you exercise your brain power, both players here proving as the opposite. It's been much more interactive than we would have assumed, and one side we would put the advantage bar on the Rosencrypt, the other turn it goes to Danny, and right now really close, as Danny has access to Bloodthirst Adversary. We do have access to 5 mana now, but we do have this land that is legendary, so if we play it, we have to give up on the other land that it's already on the battlefield.
So here's the difficult thing. That is a lot of advantage gain for Rosencrypt right now with that sort of once in future. That's why it was on the cards to watch, right? Like our team was spot on with that prediction. And yeah, because it takes a lot of resources to be able to take down even a 1/1 token with that sword of once in future, creating it into a 1/3 here. And again, what Danny's going to do here is take the tokens on and just kind of tank the hits here, getting rid of the other 1/1 as well, too. That was a great play.
And here we have Kumano, and it's a countdown because Danny down to 5, but now we are going to have the adversary that can get something from the grave. And we see here Danny taking a look at the graveyard. There's cards like Lightning Strike.
Yeah, this is where things get tricky, right? Because Lightning Strike with face and the adversary, that's 6 damage right there. 11 seems like a lot, but not under that scenario. So again, there has to be a thought process, face or not face. Do you get rid of the last creature on the field with knowing that the next one coming up with Kumano Face's Kakazan is going to be there in a couple turns? This is difficult if you're in both players' situation right now. And again, I was talking about what's going to be left once the rubble is on the field here. And I think that Danny's thinking, they're thinking to probably get rid of field here. And that's exactly what they choose to do.
Taking care of that board, and now it looks like everything is dependent on this top deck from Rosencrypt, because if it's a creature, we do have the sword, but just a pass.
Ooh.
And Danny drawing another creature, and suddenly looks like Danny has the advantage. We do know that Kumano is going to flip next turn, becoming a 2/2, and we can equip it with the sword. So it's a race. We do have Play with Fire, which is able to deal with the 2/2. Oh, Play with Fire. And
Oh.
if there's a card like a Lightning Strike, this is going to be game over. 0 top,
Zero
so
top.
that was not it. Do we get it?
Oh, this is wild.
This is such a wild game.
Soken-san. Okay. So this one gets to be a little tricky here. This is again a tangled situation here, sort of once in future to the token. Now keep in mind that if Danny were to take out the token right now, that the sort of once in future can be reattached prior to combat. So Danny has to decide, is this worth taking care of? Is this worth taking out? Remember, the land can be animated to block and the spell sphere can block. Danny opts to hang on and just let the token do its thing here, because again, if that gets attached to Actions of Kumano, that is a much bigger creature than it would be otherwise on this 1/1 here. So again,
And
and
attacking just with the 3/3.
wow, again, Rosencrypt here, despite being left at 3, assesses the situation, sees the foundry, just goes forward with the 1 token it's looking like right now. And again, good time to be in the tank here. There's a lot going on the field, a lot more than what is just present here in terms of decision making.
For sure, and this has been such a great match to watch. Both players giving us a lesson on how to play mono red, and I'm really impressed by how these players manage this game.
So there is a line here. So the foundry animates, blocks the 3/3, and one of the key things here is that spell sphere. That spell sphere can transform, leaving Danny at 1 life, and has trample. That's the big part right now, is the trample part. So and that's what Danny's going for. Danny's going for the transformed land here. Wow.
Now this play with fire is also going to activate that powers and re-equipping the sword.
Yep.
That makes sense. But when re-equipping the
Ooh.
sword, we do lose the creature because he took damage.
I have
And
no words for this game right now. This is wild, Filipa.
it is wild. And now this top deck, Invasion of Tarkir, we saw this card, how amazing it can be. And this game is very close.
Yeah. Ridiculously close. I don't know right now. I'm trying to assess the situation. I can only imagine how Danny and Rosencrypt both feel here.
Can we invasion deal 2 damage to the 2/2 and then play with fire face? It's going to get the prowess attack with both creatures, and that should be it, right?
I think that's what Danny's thinking right now.
And there it is. So play with fire.
For the
We're going to
prowess.
scry. So now we have the invasion. that once again activating that prowess, just going face.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, trample.
the trample will take care of it. Everything face. And here
Yeah,
we'll see Rosencrypt block. But as you said, that word trample, really important here, as some damage is going to pass through exactly one. And Rosencrypt losing here. What a close game. Danny played this game so well. Both players played this amazing. What did you think of this match?
that was ridiculous. That was the best game of Mono Red I've seen since the era of Goblin Chain Whirler. Like, I didn't think Mono Red against Mono Red was that wild, but there it was. You know, we didn't have no Runaway Steamkin or Goblin Chain Whirler. This was just grit against grit. There was trample present, which we're not used to seeing, a big flyer that can come out of nowhere, which sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. Like, that match could have truly gone into any direction. And just again, I want to thank both players for the game that both of them had given us, because my gosh, I wish we could see more good aggro matches like that. That was ridiculous.
And I'm so happy that we choose these matches. And week on week, VML proves itself how amazing the players are in this league. It's not easy. It's a very competitive league. It's one of the most difficult games I've played has been in the VML. It's one of the hardest ways to qualify for the regional championship, for example. This is such a great league, and I really am happy that both of these players got to showcase the ability to play this deck and also to play Magic. Let's take a look though at our next matchup. We have two more. We're kind of halfway here in the stream, and we have Branca playing five color ramps. So actually, Branca, she is my friend. She's Portuguese. She started playing the VML because I was like, "You play Magic." There's this thing called the VML, which is pretty good, and she decided to enroll. I think it's for the first time. Currently, she's at 2-2, so this is going to be a decisive week. And she decided to bring this five color ramp. um, what do you think of this list? And do you think it's going to be fast enough to fight an aggro meta that we see right now?
So I see a couple of key cards that we saw from our first matchup here. Archangel of Wrath is certainly back, and we know what kind of work and what kind of stalling even Archangel of Wrath can do. And then there's also Sunfall, right? Where if you're playing that against an aggro deck, it only takes one good shot here. That's all Sunfall needs is one good shot. And unless there's like a super backup plan in place, which in the case of Mono Red, Azorius Soldiers, there really isn't a great response to that. So all it takes is one. But the key is that you have to hang on against those aggro matchups, right? So again, all the big heavy hitters are there. The Archangels there to stall, the ossifications to stall. The only problem is they're not as numerous, right? So if you're ramping and your opponent keeps going face, that's going to prove to be quite the issue. I do want to take a note though, Vanquish the Horde quite good against Mono Red in the sideboard as well. And I don't think we're going to see it here because we're probably going to see again just more removal, but I kind of like the Tyrannax Rex in the sideboard. I always am a fan of dinosaurs. And again, that hint about the dinosaurs being like a big thing perhaps going forward, just for fun.
And let's take a look here what Branca is going to play against and Harmony. So Harmony 3-1 currently in Division 9 with Mono Red Aggro. We've seen this deck here a mirror match before. How do you think this deck does against five color ramp?
So I believe Mono Red has a very favorable matchup, at least in game one against the five color ramp. The only catch is that how will it respond to the sideboard? I do believe, if I were to guess, that maybe, just maybe, this would go to 3 games, just given that. But again, Mono Red does have a little bit of a favorable matchup here. It's just can Mono Red defeat the ramp? That's how we're going to see. This isn't really as much about life, unless you're the Mono Red player. But in terms of big picture, this isn't as much about life as it is about speed and board state. And those are the two things we're going to be assessing throughout this matchup.
And let's take a look at the match. I'm really excited for this particular one. Uh, both decks are very interesting, and I'm excited to see how these five color ramp performs against such a fast aggro deck like Mono Red. And looks like we are going to take a look on Branca's side. And here the play draw can be really decisive, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. If you're the mono red player and you're going first going into game one and you win game one, that's big because no matter what happens in game two, you would still have that game three coming up. So we'll see
And
what happens here.
here we see Branca as to mulligan this hand because it's not fast enough against mono red. This hand a bit better. Two ossification might be a key card. Kumano right away dealing damage, and we are going to play a Triumph. And here is like Triumph is such a great card, but when it comes to playing against mono red, entering the battlefield tapped is not how you want your lands to be. And here, unfortunately, Branca not able to do anything, but that 7 drop there can be discarded for 2 mana to gain 3 life and get that land that Branca desperately needs.
Yes, the herd migration, especially in its, get a land, gain some life, that's going to be a pretty key ability here in ramp for being able to do its thing. Branca's going to need to get to the Archangel here in game one. So again, going for that plane's pretty key here. Again, is it just too late for that? But that is another herd migration off the top here. And Branca has to make the decision between the removal from ossification or to herd migration and guarantee the land for the next turn. Branca going for the creature, I definitely see why that's quite valuable.
For sure, and here we see that she's already down to 11 life, and Harmony play with fire, just going full on, trying to close the game as soon as possible before we get to cards like their Archangel, and another play with fire, and that Boros is going to start taking action as Branca goes down to 2, and now that forest might not be enough here to protect Branca from this game, although there's ossification being able to remove 1 threat and we can gain 3 life with the migration again, going to 5, but then that Kamano is also going to flip, so this game not looking so good for Branca.
Yeah, you also have to remember too that that was a one top decision made. So likely Harmony has found a lightning strike, which would be the assumption here. And it's a tough decision between going migration ossification or Archangel here. Both are perfectly valid, but when you see the one tap, you have to assume that there's going to be enough damage to just deal lethal.
Yeah, and it looks like here Branca goes for that line to exile the 2-2 and now being able to gain some life with migration. But as you said, Harmony just needs something like a play with fire, lightning
Mm.
strike. There is lightning strike. Even though Branca can gain 3 life, it is not enough, and we are going to see a game 2. But as you said, game 2 now can change completely things, especially with Branca on the play.
Yeah, so Vanquish the Horde probably going to play a big role here because again, Ramp wants to see those board wipes in order to stabilize. The life might be about 5, life left, 7 life left if you're lucky. But Vanquish and Sunfall can entirely turn things around here. Going first, also a pretty big advantage here. And if you're the Ramp deck, all you need to see is an Atraxa, a Sunfall, and a well-timed Archangel of Wrath that can be kicked, and that entire game is going to be very difficult for mono red to stabilize from there.
Exactly, and here we see Branca taking her time to decide what to do here, what cards to bring. Looks like Itali being removed, at least one. It is a very heavy card, and maybe a Sunfall will come in as we see.
All right, so going into game number 2 here, that is a Topiary Stomper. Leyline Binding, also pretty cheap here in the scenario. Branca looking for a little bit more here. Archangel of Wrath, Sunfall looks much better, but not quite enough again against this aggressive deck, as you were talking about. Down to 5 here. And again, a couple cards here you definitely want to see in the case if you're Branca here. So interesting to see what the second card's going to be. The Topiary Stomper, good choice for the first one. Second one, this is a little more involved.
There's no green right now, so taking that migration out because we do not have a way to get that uh,
Mm.
that discardability going on. And we do have Sunfall, but it's 5 mana. So is it going to be fast enough? And can we get access to lands? Okay, so this is a good start. Ossification. Your rank can even afford to maybe wait a bit to play that
Mm-hmm.
ossification. And
Mm.
just going for it.
Yeah, Branca wants as many turns as possible here, and getting rid of the Swift Sphere is a good way to begin that cause.
Yeah, because even Harmony can go for a turn to Lightning Strike and then not playing that ossification would cost a lot of life. And we do have Dwarven Forge. What do you think of this card?
I actually quite like it against the more of the control builds here. But that is what is that, Bloody Betrayal that I'm seeing over there? Yeah, interesting.
Okay, we have the migration there. Unfortunately, we don't have green yet, but that Archangel of Right can enter yet. Can enter already. Does Branca wait to try to get that Sunfall? Uh, it looks like yes, we are playing a waiting game here.
Yeah, I believe that's what Branca's looking for. Also, again, the steal your creature card not looking quite appealing in this situation right now. So totally understand Branca's mode of thought here, given the scenario.
And we see a lightning strike just going face, trying to deal as much damage as possible. Play with fire. We are going to scry 0 top, and we are going to attack here. Ooh, and we do
Ooh.
get that green. And here, Branca can even start using the kicker to gain some life because it's not only about dealing to damage, but we can also gain some life in the process because of the life link. Oh, and just going for Sunfall, exiling the creature
Hmm.
and making that 1/1 can, but it cannot be used yet. Phoenix Chick
And the Foundry.
and Founder. This is a lot of damage here. 5 damage, and Branca going down to 2 life. This Archangel of Wrath is going to be an MVP card here, being able to deal with just a 2/2, and it does have flying, so it can block the Phoenix Chick. And if Harmony doesn't have an answer for this, it can actually be quite threatening.
That's right. It can take over the game here, but is this going to be a lightning strike in Harmony's hand here? We don't know.
I don't think so, because I think Harmony would just play it so fast.
Yeah.
If I was in her position, I would just slam that on the board as fast as I can. And here, Invasion of Zendikar, it's going to allow Branca to hump and get those 2 land cards to the battlefield tapped. But that means that Branca doesn't have another mana available to discard the migration and gain life. So
Yeah, definitely a difficult decision to make here. And then, of course, speaking of difficult decisions, again, there's that face one. But however, I forgot, Invasion of Zendikar only has 3 counters on it. So that is a good way to get the Skyclave here and to block here. So yeah, Branca's mode of thinking here, pretty good.
and gaining 3 life in the process, which is key against Harmony's deck, because now cards like Lightning Strike won't be enough to finish the game. And we might actually see Branca having a comeback because now that migration is on, I think we even have enough mana. Oh, and that for 4 does give mana, so we can transform an Atraxa.
Oh,
Oh, that Atraxa is just so good against mono red.
that is an Atraxa.
Yeah,
That
and we're
is,
gaining so much life.
yeah. This is
And
where, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just thinking, I don't see a way that Harmony can get out of this situation. Look at the amount of cards that Branca is able to draw. Not only that, we have migration ready to be discarded for 3 life.
Just goes to show you how fast this ramp deck can come back.
Oh!
Oh! Okay.
Wow, this was insane, but still it's not over because Branca does have that migration, and I don't think Harmony has a way to sacrifice that Atraxa. So it might not be over quite yet. So blood token, we need something like a lightning strike to finish this game. And this game has been so swingy.
Mhm.
We are going back to 11. Oh, play with fire. I think that's one off.
Let's see. Gonna gain 3, go up to 9. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And now that attracts a god to survive, and that should be it because Branca is now going to gain so much life back to 11. Once again, that Archangel of Rat can also gain life. We can remove the Phoenix cheek as well, and things are looking up for Branca here, as I think this match is going to come to a conclusion very soon because even the best card, which is stealing Atrax again, would not be enough here.
I'm glad you mentioned Archangel of Wrath again, Filipa, because oh my gosh, what a good card in the standard right now. Certainly an unsung hero.
Definitely a great card, and I can see mono red players having some nightmares about it.
Oh yeah, between that and Shieldred, yeah, absolutely.
And this card can even be on the spot better than Shieldred against this matchup, because Shieldred, if it comes too late, it's too late. But this Archangel, it can just completely change the game with that automatically gaining life and the life link.
Look at this hand for Branca to start out here. Ossification, Archangel of Wrath. I mean, this is everything you want to see if you're going second against Mono Red, which is not very favorable for this deck. Not a bad start here for Branca.
Exactly, as you said, not easy to go on the draw, but those ossifications are the perfect card to have in hand. And as we see Branca here going for the first one on the monastery, and now only Phoenix Cheek. Oh, but we do have
Mm.
another dwarf entering, and it looks like there was a missed land drop for Harmony.
Indeed. So here comes ossification here. We'll see what Branca chooses. Branca gonna pay the toll here. 2 life ward toll being paid here. And that's why a lot of red players tend to like the dwarf because, again, either way, you have to deal with it, and getting rid of it can also result in a shock to the face. So just saying.
And Stomper here is not going to be able to block quite yet, but able to get that fourth land that Branca needs, and also able to get the plane, which is going to be essential to cast that Archangel of Rat. And Lightning Strike phase, here Harmony just utilizing all the mana that she has access to and finding the third land drop.
That is a Furnish Punisher here. However, fortunately for Branca, this deck does play quite a few basic lands here, so overall, there is unaffected. But however, the Furnace Punisher also does have a key element here, and that being the fact that it has Menace. Menace being a pretty important factor here. And while the second effect doesn't take ability, that Menace is quite relevant.
It totally is, because now being able to pass through that Archangel of Rat and get some extra damage, but we do have a
Hmm.
Stroke of the Flames taking care of their Archangel of Rat, which is crucial here for Harmony to do. Branca does have access to a lot of mana now, and we can even go for Stomper. We can get access to another land. Is it enough for Stomper to be able to block? Yeah, it
Yeah.
can now attack and block. And that Azusa is such a great card in this matchup because it's going to gain you some life next turn.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of like the counter to Kumano versus Kakusan, right? Like you gain the life, you can put an extra land down, and that is another topiary stomper, which can help contribute to that Atraxas. Suddenly, Branca's position's looking very good on this board, all things considered here.
And you know what's better than two Stompers?
Two
Three
stompers,
Stompers.
well,
But here
that
we
and an
go.
Archangel, but
The
yeah.
Archangel is amazing, especially with two kickers. We are just going to gain 4 life, taking care of that. And Harmony is down to 8 life. We do have a betrayal, but Branca is at 15, and we don't have a way to sacrifice that creature. Usually, this betrayal is good to just finish up the game, but when your opponent has so much life and now going to have access to Atraxa,
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of damage here between the Archangel and the Stompers. And again, it's not enough that it's damage and lethal. There's also still that life gain, too, to boot here. Again, against all odds of how difficult that matchup is for Ramp, Branca able to stabilize in games 2 and 3 and just fantastic. Didn't even need the Vanquish the Hordes. I love that.
that was so impressive. No word wipes, just completely gaining life, so much life link, and surviving a betrayal on Atraxa, staying at one life and recouping that game. Those were kind of the games, but let's see. We still have one more match to go today. The last match that we are going to showcase on the week 5 of the VML season 10. And we are going to start here with Stevie, 3-1 on Division 10, playing Azorius soldiers. Once again, we saw this card before. I do see a spicy fairy in the deck that I really like. What do you think of this list?
So remember how I told you that the raptor was going to signify dinosaurs making a comeback in Ixalan? I foresee not only is Fairy Mastermind just really good on its own right now, I've seen Fairy Mastermind pop up a ton lately, just all over standard, Deathcliffs, ladder, etc. I believe Fairy Mastermind is just a hint of what's to come with fairies in
Bitter
Eldraine
Blossom
Wild.
reprint?
Maybe, we don't know, but I'm just saying
Oh.
that could be the signifier for fairies making a comeback, which fairies can be quite troublesome, but in all the best ways here. So yeah, Fairy Mastermind, definitely the card standing out here the most for me personally. But you have your standard fare here. We still see the Zephyr Sentinel. We see the Sky Strike Officer. That one's always a good one for drawing cards, which is what aggro is missing a lot of the time. It's the ability to draw cards. And a trio of Make Disappears in the main. And then, of course, Invasion of Govicon, which has started to make its way into lists, kind of warding off, again, sorry about the pun, so to speak, some of those nasty board wipes that can happen if you're in the position of the aggro deck here. Again, this is a well fleshed out deck. And how about those two Denics that are very cheeky that can do things against graveyard strategies here? A well thought out list here by Stevie.
And what is Steven going against? Let's see what the opponent is playing. Oh, we have Ladyofthecrease, fellow caster here, commentator on the VML, and she is 3-1 currently in our division, which is also pretty good. And a returning 5-color ramp. And so 5-color ramp versus Azorius soldiers. How do you think this is going to play out?
So this one's really interesting. By the way, Ladyofthecrease, shout outs to your deck name here, Rampy Ramp. I think that's kind of adorable. I'm just saying. I know y'all can't see that, but I love that. But yeah, again, 5-color ramp. It's one of the key meta decks. You have to have a plan for it going in. And we see even against the most aggro of decks, can struggle against this. So again, Atraxa just being yet again that evergreen threat currently in standard, herd migration, able to stabilize things, ossification, they're doing things, diseases, many journeys. I mean, you can't go wrong with most of these. However, I do see some interesting sideboard tech here for Ladyofthecrease, and I do see some farewell spiciness in the sideboard, which again is a card you don't want to see if you're the opposition of that. Very, very interesting list here. I'm still going to go out on a limb and say the MVP, the unsung hero, is going to be Archangel of Wrath. I can't believe the work that that card can put in.
And let's take a look here at the games as our players are ready to battle. And Azorius soldiers versus 5-color ramp. We see both players start. Stevie here only having access to one land.
All right, here. So we're seeing a mulligan. And okay, the one downside of playing Mirrex, totally not Stevie's fault. If I were them, I would probably play Mirrex too. I love that land. It kind of puts one in a very odd position, right? Like that makes the Make Disappear seem kind of uncomfortable here. But again, I would totally take this hand as well. I absolutely love how aggressive this deck can be. It's just again, Mirrex can make for some pretty awkward decisions to be made here, but I have faith that the deck will come through. Speaking of which, now we didn't get into this before. Stevie's deck, their deck also has Thalia here as well, in addition to this wonderful Invasion of Gobakhan here. And we'll see what Stevie picks here. What want to see what they're thinking. They're probably thinking about the removal, and rightfully so.
A lot of options. We see the invasion that we allowed you to ramp. We see ossification, which is the removal, and we also see a stomper that can allow Lady of the Crease to ramp here. So a lot of decisions for Stevie that decides to go with the stomper and attacking Gobakan here, prioritizing destroying that battle.
Yeah, again, this is one of the wrinkles in standard right now is do you attack the battle or do you attack the face here? And again, as tempting as it is to go face here, especially for an aggro deck, Stevie here definitely going for the Invasion of Gobakhan because that can create a big field quickly. And that is a key land draw here for Stevie. Again, a land was very much needed there. Came off the top. Stevie is back in this.
That land is definitely going to help Stevie a lot. And now Stevie has something that is very good to have options. And
Absolutely.
and that 2-3 flies, which is great. And Lady of the Crease doesn't quite have an answer for it yet, but she does have access to extra mana now with that Invasion of Zendikar getting 2 lands into the battlefield tapped. Next turn, there's 7 lands, and if something like Atraxa would have been in Lady of the Crease hand, that card can be so scary for Stevie here. But there's a Make Disappear in hand, and that Invasion of Gobakan is now flipped.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned something about the Make Disappear here. And again, as cool as it would be to slap down Thalia, Thalia would also hurt Make Disappear here. So again, Stevie kind of taking a step back, assessing the situation, saying, okay, there's a lot of explosive spells in Ramp. Ramp has all of its colors. Again, it's Domain. Domain is going to do that. It's going to make spells cheaper. It's going to make it do more things. So again, here, Stevie kind of showing that same discipline that we've been seeing throughout the night, saying, all right, let's take a step back. I can always flash in the Sentinel. I can use Make Disappear. A lot of options here. So again, great plays here by Stevie.
For sure, and we see here that Stevie has a lot of experience with his deck, playing it very well, being able to deploy some threats at the same time, keeping answers for what it can be a very explosive turn for Lady of the Crease. We know that usually 7 mana is the key mana for this deck with cards like Etali and Atraxa. We do have a Stomper here, and Stevie can make it disappear, but it will have to pay the cost.
I'm sorry. I like how you said can make it disappear because that is exactly what it would do. I love that.
Yeah, but but here they did decide to not make it disappear. Stevie didn't go for it for our pun. I forgive you, Stevie.
I think Stevie's quite amused by that pun, I assure you here. All right, going to the next turn. That is a deserted beach. And again, lands are okay here. Fortified beachfront, or again, sorry, my eyes are like, I think it's beachhead actually. Both soldiers here going down the line here. And again, creating more officers that can create more draw here. And the Make Disappear here really makes things a little less scary, right? Like Sunfall, very scary card right now. Make Disappear can make it, as you say, so to speak, disappear. And I wonder here what Stevie's going to do with the thought process behind this herd migration that is about to hit. And again, there are 2 of them. And even though they look expensive, the domain here makes it a little more feasible. I'm interested to see how Stevie's going to react to not 1 but 2 eventual herd migrations here.
But there's a key card actually on Stevie's side, which is this invasion that is flipped. And that card can be really good because let me just take a look at these wording on the card because I don't want to misguide here our viewers. But this invasion of Gobakan, when it's flipped, um, I'm trying to take a look at it on the other side because I think it gives indestructible as well, right?
Yeah, I like this make disappear here. Again, Stevie kind of in that dominant position right now. Great play once again here. And that is a Harbin. And there are just so many options here. The only thing at this point Stevie does not want to see is some form of board wipe. Even a tracks that can probably be dealt with at this point due to how wide Stevie is here. And again, cards can be drawn here just in case. But again, this is why Azorius Soldiers is such a scary deck to go up against. Not only do you have creatures on the ground, but you have creatures in the air here.
And that was a big attack.
Mm-hmm.
We see Lady of the Crease down to 8, and we see that this invasion of Goblin being able in the end of the turn to start giving +1/+1 to every creature that attacked, making Stevie's board really scary.
Yeah, indeed, scary here. And again, you would think by this point, if this many turns have passed, that it would, much like the last game, be in favor of the ramp deck, but that's not the case here. Stevie has fortified the board so much, and again, that counter magic playing a role, that draw by the Skystrike officer also playing a role here, being able to, again, sorry for the pun, being able to counteract here what exactly Lady of the Crease has built in terms of mana at this point. And again, even if the herd migration is played here, it's not enough. Elephants, contrary to popular belief, cannot have reach in this case. So again, those flyers playing a big role here in game number 1.
That and Lookout Mirex in the beginning made the mana situation kind of awkward for Stevie, but if going into late game, this card might pay off because even if there's a board wipe, we can start using the Mirex to create 1/1s and finish off Lady of the Crease. But that might not even be needed because look at this board, and Arbin can enter the battlefield very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, there's Harvey in there as it is. And again, this is just a very commanding board here as everything goes down. And there's Harvey animating here for all the flying. Herd migration can be played here, but that only gains 3 life. And I'll tell you something, there's a lot more than 11 life coming in.
And this showing why Azorius Soldier is the go-to tribal deck here for our players in standard at the moment. And we are going to have a game number 2. We are looking at things from Stevie's perspective. What do you think of their choices here in sideboard?
Well, I will say first of all, they have an awesome name, Steve Explosion. And based on what we just saw there, that was a very explosive board. So I just want to point that out. I love their name for that. So now looking into the sideboard here and answering your question, Filipa, this is kind of a hard one. So I'm trying to take a look at the options here. Disdainful Stroke for the bigger spells. Pretty good. Because again, as you go into those later turns, make disappear is great early, and it's even great in the mid game. But unfortunately, especially unfortunately in the case of the aggro player of Stevie here, if it goes into the late game, that becomes less and less of an answer. So Disdainful Stroke here being a very great choice. And I see this deck being named Anti-Ramp. I just noticed that. This deck's named Anti-Ramp. Wow.
Let me tell you now, Steve has a reputation to defend here after that naming that deck like this. The game 1 was true to the name, but let's see if game 2 we're going to see the same thing. As we see here, Lady of the Crease sideboarding. What do you think of the sideboard options?
So Lady of the Crease saying, okay, I will most likely need to wipe the board here, and we do see the Vanquish of the Horde this time going into the sideboard. However, remember, the Shuffler does have to cooperate. That's just part of Magic. That's the way things be here. As Lady of the Crease mulligans here, so attracts in the opening hand, Herd Migration, Topiary Stomper, those are kind of like the gas that you need, especially between the Herd Migration and the Topiary Stomper. As we see attracts go into the library here, and again, you want to keep that removal, you want to keep the ramp going. Makes sense here.
And we see here a great end for Stevie with access to so many creatures, but no counter.
All right, here again, this is a great time to be playing multicolors here. Is again, the land base is just so rich right now. And if there's one thing I really like about standard going where it does, Felipa, I really like the fact that because of the 3-year rotation of standard now, we get access to the nicer lands for a little while longer. And it gives a chance for the land base to kind of stabilize through the future sets. So again, this is making standard more interesting.
For sure. And another thing that also will make standard more interesting with this 3-year rotation is tribal decks. Tribal decks have a lot to gain with longer formats, as you can start getting more vampires, more soldiers, more dinosaurs, fairies.
This is a very interesting play from Stevie, and I like it. Stevie, again, anticipating those board wipes. Speaking of which, that is a Sunfall that just got drawn there by Lady of the Crease. So, again, Stevie is anticipating, especially as the player going second, that there will be board wipes. That is an inevitability at this point. So, Stevie trying to take advantage of those draws again because they might be few and far between as we go deeper into game number 2.
And we usually don't associate Azorius soldiers as a deck that draws a lot of cards, but that knight can change things.
Oh yeah, that officer is proving to be a staple of this deck. So if you're playing Azorius soldiers, you may want to consider playing the officer because it's quite good. Speaking of cards that are quite good here, that is a Knight Errant of Eos. I was talking about this earlier. We didn't get a chance to see it in the previous game, but there it is there. And it'll be interesting to see if Stevie waits before or after the wipe, because again, wiping is an inevitability. And the toughest part about this is you have to present enough of a threat for them to wipe, but not as wide of a board, with Sunfall being playing a role here, that all of a sudden that's going to be a liability by having too wide of a board, right? So again, you have to have a threat, but you can't use up all of your tools here. And again, the Knight Errant here being a little bit of an exception because it does find resources.
Exactly, and here we have Knight Errant finding some resources. We see some Aloran. We also see Vigilance. So we are applying some pressure. That veteran is going to be really good in the soldier deck later on, but for now, Sunfall eats the board. Everything gets exiled. And Stevie now has access to 5 mana and can do some double threat. That Lauren being able to deal
Mm-hmm.
with that token, which is very relevant because that would be a 6/6 later on.
Yep. And I'm glad you said that too. Yeah, that Loren was a great find and a great pick there for Stevie because, again, the token is one of the scarier parts of Sunfall. You would think the exiling the field is no, it is that token that can be quite terrifying here. And now, this is the tough part. Loren can be used to attack. Great. Awesome. The problem is that, and I never know, honestly, as a player or as a commentator to think of this, like the draw feels good when you have something like Shieldred, but it's really difficult because it also gives your opponent stuff, right? Again, maybe Fairy Mastermind would be a great way to use that, but that's always like a hard decision. And there's not like a right or a wrong way to do it. It's just one of those like, I always have that thought, what if I make my opponent draw something that they really need at the time? So just again, something to think about here as you all construct your decks going into this next week.
I agree, and I think here Stevie kind of forced to do it because
Mhm.
in my head, Stevie's thinking next turn, Lady of the Crease might have Atraxa, might have the domain card, might have Etali. So what can I do here? Well, what I can do here is try to draw a make disappear, but
Yeah,
no make disappear.
if I'm seeing herd migration being played like this right now, and I'm Stevie, I'm thinking, okay, there's an Atraxa coming. Like that is an inevitability. There could also be an Archangel of Wrath with a double kicker. Like without even looking at Lady of the Cruce's hand, let's say that that was concealed during this particular match. Either of those two things could be a very real possibility, and that was telegraphed by the herd migration there. If you're seeing that, then that means that there is another plan in place, something way more terrifying than herd migration.
And here we go for Archangel of Wrath, also trying to play a bit against that make disappear. And we are going to deal damage here. We can deal to 2 creatures. So getting rid of the 2/2 and also Arbringer, because then it loses the +1/+1. That's actually very well played by Lazy out of the crease there.
Now here, if you're Stevie, absolutely you go for the draw here. You need that counter magic at this point. Knowing that Archangel of Wrath could be just the start of something that's way more terrifying. I love this play here by Stevie. Again, just kind of having that plan, preparing for Atraxa, preparing for another possible board wipe at some point here. We'll see how Lady of the Crease responds is to a possible anticipation here from a counter magic play.
And that Atraxa is going to try to enter the battlefield. We do have to pay the casualty if we want to play Make Disappear.
Yep, and right here, it's really not a huge deal, right? Like, yeah, you have to sack something on the field, but again, the veterans do something in the yard here, so that's not entirely a lost cause. There, those +1/+1 or one counters can come in handy later on. So now it's just a matter of if you're Stevie, all right, how do I stabilize with making the board wide again? Loretta is one way to do that.
I'm sorry if we are repeating ourselves, Sky, but I have to say this once again. Archangel. I mean, like, I swear we didn't choose this on purpose, but I think every match, like our 4 matches that we are showing today, except the mono red mirror, this card has been winning games all over the place.
Oh yeah, yeah. So again, decent draw there for Stevie there, having the Elganjo. Elganjo can word itself off against that. And again, we have Ossification and Layla and Mining. One of those can be answered by the Loran in Stevie's hand, but that is a second Archangel of Wrath just drawn. And again, I you just said it. I don't have to say it again. You know what I was gonna say.
Yeah, but I am feeling so bad here for Stevie because that Archangel is going to just dominate this game, taking care of both creatures, gaining 4 life. And at this point, Ladyofthecrease will be at 29. And that's not where you want your opponent to be if you're playing an aggressive deck. We are going to draw with a recruitment officer. And here, Stevie
I,
really needs to find a good card.
oh, how about another recruitment officer?
And we can activate it again. So that's for the value train there. Is it enough to take care of 2 Archangels? I'm not sure. We do have Zephyr, but it's a bit too late for it. So we go for our 3-drop here. And here Stevie will have to rebuild. We do have a lot of cards to do so, but Invasion of Gobakan.
So again, great decisions being played on both ends. It's just Archangel of Wrath × 2 is so difficult for any aggro deck to deal with. Again, much like Shieldred, it does have some counterplay here. If not better, because again, it can be used to attack as well. Unlike Shieldred, where sometimes Shieldred just has to sit and wait. So again, folks, y'all really sold me an Archangel of Wrath this week. Good job.
We have here another officer being played and cycling that Triumph by Nicole and now having access to migration. That's going to make 5/3/3s if it comes into play.
That's a lot of creatures. Like, that's not a small amount by any sense here. Down the middle here for double Archangel of Wrath here, Stevie gonna probably use the Elganjo if I were to guess. Take care of one of them.
One of them, 3 damage will pass through. Stevie will go down to 11, and Nicole now knows, okay, so Stevie is tapped, which means that I can play this migration without getting countered, or I can play this leyline binding or this ossification. So a lot of options here for Lady of the Crease, as she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana, which is enough to actually double spell. So we have the migration here making 5/3/3s, and we can still ossification and get rid of what Stevie has in the board. So right now, Stevie is in deep trouble here.
Yeah, again, herd migration is just one of those cards. By the way, I called them elephants. They look like elephants. They're just beasts. I still think they're kind of elephant-y. But yeah, you don't want to see a herd migration in terms of X5/3/3s. Just absolutely terrifying here. We do have the double Skystrike officer by Stevie. But again, this is just such a ferocious board from Lady of the Crease here.
Yeah, and Stevie knows that she has leyline binding in end. So, oh, I'm not going to say it again. I'm not going to.
I
And
know.
Stevie was done as well.
We'll just call it the thing.
The thing,
The
the,
thing.
the one that shall not be named.
It is the thing of tonight. All right, we go into game number 3 here, and this is anyone's game. So again, I want to thank Lady of the Crease and Stevie here. Both of them just leaving it all out on the field here. What a great matchup.
And who do you think has the advantage here? Because game 3, soldiers on the play, I would give the game to soldiers, but we saw that these can go both ways. What do you think?
Yeah, it's gonna depend on how when Lady of the Crease sees the first wipe, right? Like, because again, you have to make it to that wipe. That was one of the keys early on in game 2 for Lady of the Crease, hitting that sunfall. It just takes up so many resources. It exiles everything, and then it even took up Loran's ability there. So this is interesting if you're Lady of the Crease. You know, you have the spot removal and leyline binding, the herd migration, the Atraxa, and Lady, she keeps it. And of course, we have a great hand here from Stevie as well. You have the reinforcements, you have the veteran. This is going to be a great game number 3 between both these players. The only downside is Stevie did not get that the land that would come into play untapped in order to play the reinforcements. So Stevie is thrown a little bit off by that, but I don't think it's going to make a great difference here early on. We'll see. We'll see. It depends on what Lady of the Crease draws and how well she can hold off the early strike here. That barrage looking mighty tempting right now for sure.
And here, just passing, we do find the third land. So Stevie able to uh, find the land and now having access to Invasion of Gobakan, taking a look at Lady of the Crease's hand and going to very soon find out what threats lie on here. I think Lady of the Crease thinking about discarding that migration, getting the land that she needs to get access to the spells and gaining some life in the process.
Yeah, so right here, Invasion of Gogurkan so much more than just taxing something, right? It's also about gaining knowledge and kind of having that confidence going forward of that knowledge, right? This is the moment where if we were playing in paper, you would see the opponent just writing down everything in the hand because again, knowledge is very much power in this matchup, right? So in terms of Invasion of Gobakhan, gonna probably get rid of a later game threat here.
And this will provide a lot of information to Stevie that is able to now see that, okay, Nicole does have the Atraxa. I do have two disdainful strokes. I
Mhm.
know what I need to play against. So Stevie will be able here to counter that Atraxa. So very good information to obtain. And here, Lady of the Crease kind of in an awkward spot on what to play.
Mhm. Yeah, again, Steven making the great plays here, being able to go for that invasion of Govakan here, having disdainful stroke, knowing to sideboard disdainful stroke in here. Just again, just great thought processes in general. We're probably going to see barrage on officer, assuming that there's a red source. I believe there is with that garden. I believe that's the Naya land.
Yeah, I think it
Going for
is.
face here, interesting. I mean, there is a case to go for face as well. And at this point, again, Stevie's aware of what's going on in Lady of the Crease's hand. Looks like we're going to see that herd migration go down.
Gaining
Well,
some life, getting
yeah.
access to a land that enters untapped.
I almost call it land cycling. It's like land cycling that's not land cycling, you know?
It's land cycling and gets you 3 life. So that 3 life, we saw how important can be in some matchups. Here, as we see, Stevie applying pressure with that officer from the beginning, and Lady of the Crease still at 22 life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Stevie also having the reinforcements up, which is definitely going to get played. We're not going to see two expensive spells with disdainful get played here, so we're definitely going to see the resolute reinforcements here get played. The question is, what is Stevie going to do with the invasion of Gobakan? Also, the officer could be played here too. That would be a very viable strat as well too. Looks like Stevie's going for the ability.
Going for card advantage, deciding to go for the longer game here, acknowledging that they do have a couple of strokes that can disrupt what Lady of the Crease will try to do. And
Mhm.
here, Stevie can just pass the turn.
Yeah, they might have. Again, one of the most important things about that form of card advantage was they may have saved themselves here. And here's why. There wasn't a lot of aggressive cards coming up, right? Like we saw a couple of lower counter spells, which may have not made a difference. Those were two make disappears there. So, in getting those off the top and then getting a creature in addition, Stevie, they are getting rid of bad possible card draw scenarios here. So, again, something to look out for. The thing is going to attempt to come out. Again, this
The
is
thing is there,
the
but the
thing.
thing is 4 mana, so that's a
Uh,
key mana value here for what Stevie has in hand. So maybe we can counter the thing.
so yeah, Stevie's definitely going to counter that. That has been a thorn that Stevie just does not want to deal with throughout this game. Again, it's so potent, right? Stevie here
It,
opting to go for the disdainful stroke. Totally understandable here. We get it, Stevie.
I don't blame you, CV. They made a great choice because now Lady of the Crease is tapped, which means that we can start taking care of that battle, finish it off, and that flip side of the battle is actually very relevant. Going to start putting counters on our old team and giving us a sort of protection, which is really crucial. And things are looking pretty good here for Stevie now. With having access to creatures in instant speed, with stroke, with our creatures being
Wow.
all pumped up.
Oh my goodness, there's another one here, but looks like Lady of the Crease might be going for the sure thing. And the sure thing here being that this barrage cannot be countered here, probably gonna go for the Harvin because she's like, no. No, 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 no. I know how this goes. Either get rid of your invasion. However, Stevie has one trick involving this up their sleeve. So here's the complicated part. There could be a wipe, there could be another Archangel. This is a very difficult move to make here, and there's not necessarily a wrong or right answer here. Stevie is seeing their opening. They're opening to winning this game here, and this is totally sensible given the board state right now.
Looks like we are in response going for a leyline binding, or at least Lady of the Crease is considering it.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Because Archangel now has a pass to get onto the field. And here, probably going to take advantage of that because Archangel can also, let me see, the ossification always makes it look like there's more mana. Okay, there it is. So yeah, probably going to summon Archangel of Wrath here and either pay the two and zap one of them or Leyline Binding. Let's see what Lady of the Crease is thinking here. No ossification here instead. The taxed ossification too. Very interesting move here. Lady of the Crease wants to get the full amount of benefit here from Archangel of Wrath here. This may work to Stevie's advantage though, because again, Stevie could activate Invasion of Gobakhan, give things, I believe, Hexproof and Indestructible, could also leave it alone because again, the flipped invasion is quite powerful.
And this play by Lady of the Crease was actually really good because now we still keep mana for the leyline binding, being able to take care of some threat that might appear and even of that invasion.
Wow. And that is a second. No, wait. No, that's third disdainful stroke. See, I'm thinking a second breakfast here. I blame Lurlings. That's a third disdainful stroke here for Stevie. That is huge at this point of the game. And considering Lady of the Crease does not have the full gambit of mana that she would hope to have by this point, that is such a pivotal draw here for Stevie.
And you're showing why these kind of aggro decks that play blue and have access to counter magic can be so powerful because now Stevie can play these more interesting game where they have access to this invasion that can protect the creatures, access to flashy creatures, access to disgraceful stroke. So what can Lady of the Crease do in this situation? It's not going to be easy to take care of this board.
Well, again, and it's important to note this in VML, both players have access to each other's deck lists, right? She has to know that Stevie sided in additional counter magic, right? We've already seen the disdainful stroke. She has already seen the additional disdainful stroke, and now Stevie, they are casting another disdainful stroke here. And if you're Lady of the Crease, that's rough. That is just a rough scenario here. The only thought process left here in this current board state, is how is that's a fairy mastermind off the top. Unbelievable here for Stevie. Again, Stevie going up. They are going up against a decent amount of mana here, deep into game number 3 here, which does not benefit the aggro player, and they are finding a way in this match.
And at this point, Lady of the Priest must be thinking, my only option is these Atraxa resolving. Stevie already used 2 disdainful strokes. Where are the odds that they do have a third one? And when
Yeah.
once that Atraxa tries to hit the battlefield, that must have to be the nail in the coffin. And here,
So,
Leyline Binding taking care of this
ooh.
invasion.
Yeah, this is very, very interesting here, and I get why Stevie let this resolve. So first of all, it's always good to have another counter spell. Again, have to
Oh,
anticipate those big spells, right? Second of all, remember, Loran can break the Leyline Binding, so that Gobakon is not lost forever. Of course, it would have to be flipped over, but it doesn't need to be flipped over here. That's it. That's going to be lethal. And what a game here for both Stevie and Lady of the Crease. My goodness, that was so exciting. And again, you don't get a chance to see aggro stabilize like that often, but Stevie, they made it happen. They made it work. And I'm very, very impressed with the way Stevie and both Lady of the Crease navigated through that game. Good games to both players. Thank you so much for showing us.
and actually, this was quite a decisive game here for Stevie, as now they advance with a very good score in the VML. And I'm excited to see if they do make it into the playoffs, because this is going to be such an interesting. And I see here Stevie was at 3-1, and now they're going to be at 4-1 after this match, which is a great way to almost make the playoffs. Not quite yet, but Stevie definitely on a good mode to get it. And this was our last match of the day. What do you think of the matches that we had today? Of course, there's the thing that we shall not name.
Well, I will tell you something. When the bans at first happened, like, and I understand why that happened, I was heartbroken because I had run Rakdos into the ground. I ran Rakdos until the wheels fell off in the form of bans, right? So I was heartbroken. But based on the matches that we've been seeing, and I've been doing commentary here for the last 2 weeks post ban, Wizards, I have to hand it to you. This really did stabilize the format quite a bit. We're seeing a lot of creative plays here. We're seeing a lot of new heroes emerge in terms of for example, Archangel of Wrath, the thing, for example. And we do get a chance to see just these beautiful strategies unfold. And I can't wait to see what's next. I'm nervous as a competitor in this league. I'm very nervous for what's about to happen. But I look forward to the challenge. This is why I love VML. This is why I love being able to change decks each week and anticipate opponents' moves through that visible deck list. Just again, I want to just shout out everyone who made it possible for us to be here. That includes Phoebe behind the scenes. Phoebe, thank you so much for everything tonight.
I'm glad to have been of help. And yeah, no, still run the duels. I'm just absolutely thrilled with that. Everybody has great names, even Stevienyx. I'm just thrilled about that one too because I'm an old DJ and yeah, I like music.
And before we finish tonight, we cannot do it without thanking, obviously, Phoebe once again. Technical support, amazing, always here for us. Also, all the viewers I see, for example, players also in the chat. Steve was here in the chat. Thank you so much for coming back and seeing the commentary in your game. That's also fun to do. And thank you so much to our sponsors, Wizards of the Coast. And also, good luck, I5, an amazing podcast with Maria and Megan. And thank you so much for everyone. This is going to be the end of season 10, week 5, but we'll be back next week, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, same place, Twitch TV here on the VML, and we'll be back next weekend.